Alright, David Harry here. Now, are you somebody who's been searching the internet, YouTube and various forums such as Reddit to find the answer to which video codec between H.264 and H.265 is the best one for using to upload to YouTube as far as video quality for your final YouTube video is concerned? Well, what I've done is to prepare 6 different video files, all using variations between H.264 and H.265, which you can go and watch for yourself, and then you can do all the pixel peeping that you want, and then you can decide what differences there are, or if any, between the 6 different files. So to be clear, there are 3 different uploads using H.264 and 3 different uploads using H.265, and you will find the links to them in the video description below, so you can go and watch them and make up your own minds as to what the differences are, if any. However, for those of you who would like to know a lot more boring detail on how the actual test was prepared and how it was exported and stuff, I'm going to dive into a very long and very boring explanation of that right now. Okay, so I'm just into Resolve here, and what I'm going to do is just start stepping through some of the assets in the timeline and explain what's going on. Now, unfortunately, after I'd done the actual edit and then done the export of the files, I'd inadvertently deleted some of the source files here. However, I can show you what's actually in place here and also the properties for the source files. Now, if I just go to here, as we can see, this is 4K UHD at 60 frames per second. So to be clear, the project is 4K UHD 60 frames per second, and so is the output. Now, to start off with, each of the 6 exports has got its own title card at the beginning. So as we can see here, this one says test 6, and it's explaining what codec it is and what variation of the codec. They all do that. All 6 of them have got their own unique little top line there explaining what's going on. Now, towards the end of that title, there is a dissolve, as we can see there, or a fade to black. Now, these dissolves and fades to black and stuff, they're really good for stressing a codec. So that's going to be something to look out for when you start looking through the test outputs. Now, once we get to here, this is actually a video clip. Now, if I just show you the properties here, this is H.265 main 422, so basically 10-bit 422. However, this is only 25 FPS. It is 4K UHD, but 25 FPS. So what's going to go on here is that there's going to be frame interpolation going on, so 25 up to 60. So that's also a pretty good test for looking at certain things to do with interpolation and stuff. And also, the thing with this here clip, and this probably happens for a lot of video as well, we tend to probably get a little bit of depth of field and stuff, so slight blaring going on. And as you can see here, the background has got a slight blur to it. Now, the problem here is that these blurry backgrounds actually help the encoder a lot, and they help the codecs a lot. The thing that tends to basically kind of like stress out a codec or stress out an encoder is basically HF and stuff like that. So what you're going to find is when you've got like a lot of bright detail and fine detail, that's where you're going to start stressing out any type of codec or encoder. And indeed, in this shot, probably my grey scruffy beard is probably the thing to look for on the playback, because that's probably the thing that's going to like be the hardest thing there to encode because of the detail in it. Anyway, so that plays through there, and then what it does, it goes then to this screen grab here. Now, this screen grab is Apple ProRes 422HQ. So this once again is 10-bit 422. Now, this particular screen grab is good for a number of reasons. One, we've got these gradient colors in the background here, and of course, once these then get encoded and end up as 8-bit on YouTube, we are going to see banding and various artifacts with that. So that's something to definitely look out for. And also, there's a certain amount of detail in here on the actual UI for the disk speed test, so there's some very fine detail in here, so that's another good thing to be looking out for. Now what happens then, that same clip then gets blown into there. So as we can see, there's going to be some detail to look at there, which softens up a little bit once it's blown into, but again, it's something good to check out. But also we've got these really clean circles here, and there's something as well to keep a lookout for once they've been re-encoded and stuff. And once again as well, because we're blowing into the background here, these gradient colors are also going to be really good to gauge as well after they've been encoded. Then that moves on, and then that then comes down to this, and inside here there's some text here which is quite small. Again, another good thing to look at as far as encoding is concerned. And once again, it's the same background with the gradients and stuff. Then when we get down to here, I do a massive zoom in, and then what this is going to do here is give us a really good idea as to what all this looks like after it's encoded, because what's going on here is that we're going to get a number of like artifacts and stuff because it's been blown into so much. So when you have a like, you know, a look around the edges of the numbers and the text and stuff, all these things are going to exhibit certain artifacts, which once again are going to be really difficult for the encoder and the codec to handle. Then once we get down to here, I've just got a simple still. Now this still is a JPEG, which is only 8-bit. However, the JPEG here is only a 1080 JPEG. So this is being upscaled to 4K UHD. Now, once we get down to here, this is where I'd lost the original files. However, I do have one of the encodes here to show us what's in here. Now, once again, these particular clips here, or the same clip just cut up, is once again ProRes 422 HQ, so 10-bit 422, and again 60 FPS 4K UHD. Now, inside of here, it's pretty much similar to the previous capture. But what I'm doing here, by the time I get down to about here, as we will see, this starts zooming in. So once again, with the type of background that we've got going on, and it's constantly moving with the zoom in, what we're going to be able to see there is any artifacts being introduced through banding and stuff like that. Then of course there's certain details here, and even though this is just simple stuff to do with, like, say, black on green and black on like off-white and grey, again, it's all good stuff for us to be looking at just to see exactly what's going on. Now, once we get down to here, what I've got on the go here is I've got a still here, which is just a JPEG of Ben there. But in the background, as we'll see here, there's a motion background. Now, all these motion backgrounds are all going to be generated or originated at 10-bit 422 anyway. Then by the time I get to the second one, this one looks dead simple, but once again, there's a very fine gradient in the sky up here. So as that plays through, we can definitely gauge what's going on with that gradient after the encode, and then also the edges of these clouds. Now, between these, like these generated kind of like CG things, I've got these slow dissolves going on as well. Once again, dissolves are really good for stressing stuff out. And then the next one here, this is like a noise pattern. In fact, let me just go bigger. That's like a noise pattern type thing going on in there with a blur on it. And once again, that also has a transition or a fade from the previous one. And then by the time we get to here, this is a star field. Now this one's going to be pretty good for testing like the encoding and like the, you know, whatever YouTube does and stuff to do with the codecs, because this is like really difficult to encode because these are like very, very high resolution small dots, and obviously once they're moving around and crossing over each other and stuff like that, that's actually a really good stress of any encoder. Now also there's a dissolve going between them, and then eventually what happens here is then that star field then dissolves into this sequence here. Now this sequence here is game capture. However, this is going to be like, you know, well, it's originally sourced very high quality, and as we can see here, once again, it's ProRes 422 HQ. Now the reason for including this game capture is because there's loads of different colors, there's loads of, like, you know, gradients, and there's a lot of fast movement. All things which can be very confusing for any codec and any encoder. So as this plays through here, there's just like, you know, tons and tons of consistent or constant movement going on. and it is a very difficult thing for any encoder to actually deal with there. And plus also we've got a sky in the background, so that's going to be good for gauging things like banding as well as obviously all the color stuff that's going on within that. And then there's also some music playing under that as it goes through. Then at the very end, what I've done here, I've just done a very clean playback of the music that was used within side part of the edit, and this was provided to me by the Long Grays, a track called Illumina. So thank you very much to Threlly and John for allowing me to use this clip or this track. And I would strongly recommend, if you do watch, you know, through these tests, definitely have a good listen to this track at the end. It's absolutely awesome. Now moving on to the encoded outputs, and I've done 3 variations for H.264 and 3 variations for H.265. So looking at H.264 first, I'm using QuickTime as the wrapper or the container. I'm obviously using H.264 for the codec. I'm using the hardware accelerator as well within the Macs. And then as far as the resolution and the frame rate are concerned, they are 4K UHD and 60, so they're basically replicating what the actual timeline and the edit are. Now for the quality, I've set this to automatic, and the reason why is because Resolve or the Apple encoders do a really good job at averaging out a good bit rate here. So what I've then done is to select multipass, which wasn't selected just then, but everything is on a multipass. Now here's the important bit. There are 3 variations of this output here for H.264. The first one is in the base profile, the second one is in the main profile, and then the third one is in the high profile. So that is the 3 differences between the H.264 outputs. Now if I just switch over to H.265, it's pretty much the same thing, using QuickTime as the wrapper or the container. Obviously H.265 is the codec, and then I'm also using the Apple hardware acceleration. Then the timeline resolution and frame rate is 4K UHD 60 FPS, once again matching, you know, the timeline, so the output resolution and frame rate matches the timeline or the input resolution and frame rate. And then once again I've chosen to use automatic again because the automatic is a very good balance for the actual bit rates used, and especially because I'm using the multipass. Now if anybody's got an interest, let me know in the comment section, and what I will do is some variations of this particular test but using different bit rates as well, just to show you that after a certain point it doesn't matter how high the bitrate goes when you're using like an interframe codec such as H.264 or H.265, because once they hit like their kind of like peak maximum, as it were, anything beyond that is basically wasted, and it just becomes very massive diminishing returns. However, like I say, if anybody's interested, I will do some fixed bitrate tests as well, so people can see what or if there are any variations within bit rates. Then again, what I've done here, I've switched off optimize for speed. I won't explain why that is right now, but basically we do actually get a little bit more of an intensified encode. And then what I've done is to switch on multipass encode, and then once again there are 3 options here, so let me just show you. So the first output is in the main profile, the second output is in the main 10 profile, and the third output is in the main 42210 profile. Now just quickly, between what I've done here with the H.264 and the H.265 outputs, we are going from anywhere from 8-bit 420 for the output up to 10-bit 422. Now of course YouTube will redo everything at 8-bit 420, so it's going to truncate certain things to do with the chroma subsampling and also the bit depth. However, this is going to be good for you to see what the results are like, not just with the codecs themselves and the variations, but also when supplying a 10-bit 422 master up to YouTube as well. And then finally, I'm just going to show you the file sizes for the encoded outputs here. But just remember that these are very specific to this particular test and, you know, the type of content used and stuff. However, it will give you an idea about the differences between each of the types of outputs. So the first one here, so this is going to be H.264, and this is the base profile. So the output size for that is, let's see, that's 3.02 gigabytes. Now the second one here is the H.264 using the main profile, and the file size for that one is 3.07 as well. And then the third one is also H.264, and this is going to be the high profile. And then the file size for that is 3.07, so no change in the file sizes for them. Now when I get over to the H.265, the first one is the main profile, and then the file size for this one is 2.25, because of course H.265 is more efficient than H.264, so it will produce a smaller file size for the exact same inputted content for the encode. Now if I go to the second file here, this is also H.265, and this is main 10, so don't forget this one here is an 8-bit file. Now the main 10 is a 10-bit 420 file, and as you can see it only increases very slightly to 2.28 gigabytes compared to the 2.25 for the 8-bit 420 file. And then the final one here, this is going to be the main 42210, as we can see, main 42210, and the file size for that one is 2.06 gigabytes. Now when you look at this one, you might be thinking to yourself, hold on a minute, that's 10-bit 422, why is that actually smaller again? Well, there is actually something going on here which is to do with the efficiency of the bits when it's being encoded. If anybody's got any interest in something like that, let me know and I will do a video explaining what that's all about as well. Anyway, that will do it for all of the explaining. So what I'm going to do now is a quick end summary to finish this video. Okay, so to an end summary then, and this will be quite short because I've just done a ton of explaining about that particular project and how it was built up, and I've given a lot of information there to do with like the codecs used, the resolutions, the frame rates, also the bit depths and the chroma subsampling within the source material and stuff like that. Now another thing that I did do, which was to explain to you certain things which you should look out for on playback for any type of YouTube playback for standard dynamic range content, which of course this all was. So to be clear, regardless of whether you upload at 8-bit 420 or 10-bit 422 or anywhere in between, YouTube will recompress all of those uploads to 8-bit 420 for everything that is standard dynamic range or SDR. So like I say, there's going to be a bunch of stuff you can look out for within the playbacks, which are clear indicators that the playback is 8-bit 420, or more precisely that it's 8-bit. So certain things such as banding, and banding really is a reduction in the bit depth, and some people will say that that's a reduction in dynamic range. However, it's more just a reduction in bit depth, which then has an impact on the color range and stuff. So like I say, there's a whole bunch of stuff that you can now go and analyze just to see what those differences are compared to what was uploaded and stuff like that. Anyway, hopefully this video has been useful to some people out there, and please do let me know in the comments section if you found it interesting, or if indeed, you know, you've seen anything within the playbacks that you were surprised about, or were those playbacks pretty much what you were expecting to see anyways. Okay, I'm David Harry. Thank you very much for watching this video. Take care and goodbye now.